Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This was all John's idea, by the way.
I suggested Will, and somehow I'm here.
He really did. He texted me and he said, "You need Will to come over there." And I said, "Well, won't you come with him?" He said, "Sure."
And then look what else showed up.
Yeah. And then
How
when I
lucky
met Kevin back there,
You gotta have a driver.
see, Kevin just wants to talk from behind. Yeah, just lock it up in the register. I'll get it after we film. And that's the way this goes. We just let whoever interrupt or whatever. It's real laid back. So
That's how Will and I talk. Daily.
well, and that's what I want. You know, what we're trying to do is more documentary than it is like an interview. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but since people will be watching this that may or may not know who y'all are, why don't y'all tell us who you are, what you do?
John Cox. I'm an attorney at Cleveland, and born and raised in Cleveland since '99. I've been practicing law.
ESPN announcer.
I've done some work before.
Well, were you the color commentator, sideline color
Sideline
commentator?
analyst.
Yeah, sideline analyst. Okay, I knew you'd have the exact term for that.
Yeah. With the net, with the leader.
Yeah, yeah. But,
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Now I have to make a living every now and then.
well, that's what I don't make a penny off this. This is just for fun, you know. It's just, and I get a lot out of talking to people and learning. You know, I'm gonna learn something from you guys. I know. Will, what are you doing now?
Been in my own businesses now for 5 years, since 2012, and started with one. It's now into 3 entities. So I've got a non-medical home care company, a housekeeping and janitorial service company, and then I've got some rental properties that I run and manage. The most rewarding one for sure is home care. We take care of about 150 people a week, over 2,000 service hours. And, these are people that
Bryce is sneaking in, getting the liquor.
yeah.
This is mine. This is mine.
Enjoy your booze.
Peace.
But yeah, it is. It's a rewarding business. These are these people that we're taking care of. 90% of them poverty line.
Yeah.
So the only, in a lot of cases, the only familiar face or in most cases, the only human interaction they have in a week's time is with my employees.
So it's a lot of shut-ins or something? Is that what the deal is?
Well, if we're having to go into somebody's house and get them up in the morning, get them a bath, get them dressed, get them fed, they may not have any more family come see them the rest of the day. So we're in there basically just trying to get them ready for the day. But if they don't have anywhere to go or any family to take them anywhere,
What's the name of that business?
That's Right at Home.
Right at Home.
Yeah. So we're operating.
And I guess that's a
17
medical
counties.
field. Is it more medical field than?
It's non-medical. Some people require a lot more care, and then some don't require as much. They might. It's really just on the severity of their illnesses. We've got some people we see 3 times a week for 2 hours a day. We've got some people we see 50, 60 hours a week.
Now, how did you see the need for that? How did you get that?
2 parts. We had sitters with my father before he died, so we had round-the-clock sitters with him, which was a huge help for the family. We had our own business in Clarksville, and so we're still trying to run that. I'm 19, my mom's in her 60s, trying to keep that business afloat because that's what made our money. And also, one of the biggest demographics was coming of age, and that was baby boomers. And like it or not, when you've got people that are hitting that age of 70 plus, the market for those people needing home care rather than going into nursing, assisted living, those type of facilities was the biggest it's ever been. So we're going into year 6, and it's been really, really good business.
How do you market that?
I will tell you, I've used a lot of different marketing mediums for everything. To me, we've gotten a lot of business and referrals from the healthcare community itself, because they want to be able to trust when they send Mr. or Mrs. out of their hospital, out of their facility, and they're going home, they want to make sure that that person doesn't become a readmittance in their hospital. A lot of the case now it's for penalties and fines. They want to make sure this person stays healthy and doesn't get readmitted into their hospital. So they want to find companies they can trust that are going to take care of that person after they leave their care. So we tend to do, I think, a great job. And so we get a lot of referral business that way. The state trusts us to handle a lot of Medicaid. VA in Memphis and Jackson contract with us.
Cool.
We're in contract negotiations right now with the Department of Mental Health. So, you know, I'm not saying that the state trusts you that you're the greatest thing in the world, but if they do put a little bit of trust into you, then they actually see that you've got some value to help them out with what they're trying to accomplish. We've got, not to brag, industry average in this field is a 9.16 satisfaction rate. That's from caregivers and from clients. There's a company that, through ours, does an independent study. They call caregivers, they call clients, they ask them a series of questions, and they rank it. We were at about a 9.6. We were the second. My office was the second highest approval rating in our system, which is, I think it's 400 and something offices now internationally. So I feel like we do a good job.
Cool.
Yeah.
You're gonna find that 0.4%, aren't you?
We're gonna find it, bro. Getting it.
You know, I remember when my grandmother was, when she got to the point where she needed that kind of care, we were just very fortunate that she was financially able to deal with that herself. I mean, she would still had a peace of mind. She went and found somebody, paid them, and they stayed, usually during the day, but up to right at the end there, they were staying pretty well all night long with it. I mean, a lot of people don't have that financial ability. And I didn't know that Medicaid or Medicare does that part of it.
Medicaid's the only one that does it, and naturally VA will do it to some extent. They, it's really, you hear a lot of these horror stories about the Veterans Administration, and believe me, they're all true. They are, it's troubling for me to see, and I go out and visit with some of these guys and women that are veterans, and you talk to them, and you just, we do a little bit of care for them, and you just start asking them questions. Is it true if you go here and try to get this done, does this work? And they're just like, it's a nightmare. I mean, they'll all tell you. There's not one of them that says, thank God for the Veterans Administration taking care of me. I mean, they're just like, it's a curse, but they went out and served, it's free. My people go through all this training and everything else. They have to have all these credentials, all these certifications.
When you vetted them.
Background checks, drug screens, and then we've got all of this, liability insurance, surety bonds, and workman's comp to cover that up, because just like anybody else, if they come in your house and slip and fall, guess what?
It's liable.
It's your homeowners.
Ask him.
Damn lawyer.
Exactly.
Well, exactly. This is probably one of the people that I think I conferred with on most of these in business dealings was.
Lawyers are like politicians in that everybody hates everybody else's lawyer, but they love their lawyer.
Yeah.
They hate everybody else's politician, but we're gonna keep electing that same guy.
Yeah. This is my lawyer. I don't like him.
It's okay.
I've also known him for 25 years, so it's okay.
I will say this, I do know some lawyers that people use that they don't like. And you can probably make a one or two of them. They're good lawyers, they're just not, people just don't like them. I'm not talking about you, John. But you can probably guess about one or two of them I'm thinking about.
Present company excluded, right? Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
That tie getting awful tight over there.
Unfortunately, they write checks to me and I write checks to them, so we all give each other a bunch of crap.
It's a great day. It's America.
It's on
Reciprocation of capital. Exactly right.
Yeah, the dollar doesn't mean much if it doesn't get passed around a little bit.
Exactly. I just need them to pass more this way.
Now tell us about your other businesses while we're.
All right. Well, I've got Delta Maids, and I started it out of necessity when I started the home care business. We weren't doing enough business to keep it floating, so we looked at cleaning houses. That's actually one of my first clients right there. It still has been. I've still got some of the original folks. We started that. It was called Made to Order, which was a terrible movie in the 80s, so we ended up changing the name.
I like Delta May better.
It sounded fantastic at first, like made to order. Man, this is awesome.
Isn't that Sandra Bullock? Who was that?
It was really bad. I watched about 15 seconds of it, but I was Googling one day because trying to make sure we were showing them on the web.
It's J-Lo.
What's J-Lo, wasn't it? J-Lo. So we grew rapidly, and we were doing a lot of business really poorly. And he'd probably agree with that at the beginning.
They always took care of me with a big.
But we always took care of Kevin, so it was
So
very
you're a
poor.
businessman.
Because his brother see you.
Right. And then he'll talk bad about me on the radio.
True, that's double bad.
He has
Guess it was
unlimited
this week.
resources. Unlimited resources. And so we lost it down to about 3 clients. And I was getting ready to shut the whole thing down. Started growing a little organically and changed the name. Got us a nice looking website, all these different bells and whistles. We're doing about 150 to 160 properties now.
So those two kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
They do. That's where we kind of got some of that from. It's like
Pros and cons of being a franchisee.
royalties, con. Pros, that's really your only, that and you're kind of locked into it. And when you get into it for a couple years, you're kind of like, I could have done this.
Yeah,
I mean, are people really using us because
you're a franchisee.
Because it's right at home, or are they using us because they know all the people that work there now? I think it's good to help you get an idea of what you're, what you can be doing. But no offense to them. I mean, I like them. They're all very nice people. But they didn't help put us on to the programs that we're using now. They didn't. I don't think their marketing that we pay into has taken my business from 0 to this. It hasn't.
Well, like you were saying earlier, that it's mostly going to be referrals from almost word of mouth.
It's referrals and local.
I mean, how do you? That's a really difficult thing because that's what I'm more of a marketer and brander type thinker than anything else. And I'm listening to you going, that'd be really tough to advertise on the radio or whatever, because.
Well, it's tough. Nobody's sitting there watching Fox News, which I see their commercials on, and there are other companies out there that are our competitors that advertise heavily.
And I've never seen any of those commercials. Just to give you an idea.
If you've ever heard that jingle for Visiting Angels, and I promise you,
I've heard the name Visiting Angels.
You either consciously or subconsciously have heard it in the background because they advertise. It's called Visiting Angels.
Yes.
You've heard it.
I have.
Sounds like a lingerie company.
Sounds like an adult
Door-to-door lingerie company.
website.
Door-to-door lingerie company.
I've never seen them.
Where's your market?
Yeah.
We've heard some other marketing strategies that our little group has told me that I ought to do, and I've declined them all.
What are you hanging around, man?
Let's say I do 40,000 in a week. They get 5%. Now, they don't call you up and say, "Hey, Will, guess congratulations, man. Thanks for making us $2,000."
Who has the most power to refer something like that? Is it a doctor, or will it be a nurse, or?
Very rarely are you gonna. Well, I'll say it like this: in most cases now, you're looking at either the nurse practitioner, or you're looking at whoever a discharged nurse is, or a social worker, because they're the people that once the doctor or even the nurse practitioner says, here's what we're going to be giving you. You need to be taking this 3 times a day, blah, 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 blah. Here you go, out the door. They're being walked out by a discharged nurse from a hospital, or they're being talked to by a social worker. Your teams that are here in town that work for the planning and development districts, they are a nurse social worker team. So that's where a lot of these are coming from, is that you're getting not necessarily the top provider. You're getting somebody that's a little bit down their line that they'll say, go find them some home care. They need some home care.
It almost looks like,
or a person. It's exactly right. Yeah.
But I was wondering in the medical field, because it would almost seem like that 2% would be better spent marketing to those people rather than marketing to the person. You know what I mean?
But I beat my head against the wall trying to tell them.
I mean, look at what pharmaceutical companies have done. Of course, they do both. They advertise and they
take folks out to eat.
Well, they do the presentation, but what we really know is they're taking them out to eat in 1933. I mean, we did a lot of those things, and I saw how that worked, but it was
those are
And it
not
worked.
those are not impulse buys. And
Right,
then
and that's what I'm saying.
companies, there's nobody that gets on there and goes, "Thank God, I've been wondering what would do this for me."
I need some Lexapro.
And there it is
yeah.
with the family running through the field over here. Where I don't think that anybody looks at it and goes, "Oh, thank God on Fox News, we finally found the home care business. This was a good buy for us to go spend $30,000 on this television spot." You know, and that's where it comes back down to the franchisees coming over here screaming. You know,
People don't watch television anymore either.
where's marketing my? Well, that's what I've been telling them, man. You can, there's a lot of different avenues where they could get more bang for their buck and hit people where they're looking.
You know, when I opened this restaurant, and believe it or not, I've been open 12 years here in Drew. People laughed at me when we opened, and I've made good money, and I've lost money in subsequent years, and gone back to making money again. But I always thought, I said, I looked at food franchise, and I was like, I think I can replicate that without being a franchisee. And now, and my goal always was in mind, if I could make it work in Drew, that template would probably work anywhere. So I'm thinking a total different direction now. I would rather be the franchisor than the franchisee,
There's we're in the throes of that right now, trying it out with Delta Mays and pushing it to different areas. One thing I learned, and I was talking to a guy who helps companies like you're saying, you've got an idea, you've got a proven concept, you can be able to look at somebody and say, "Hey, Joe Blow, give me $25,000 and I'm going to teach you my knowledge of how to make this work where you are." And so we were talking to a company out of Texas that they do nothing but develop franchises. These guys come in here and they say, "Here's my idea, ABC. You tell me how to turn it into a franchise system." And they'll do all this stuff. They'll come up with all the, this is what we do on this step, this step, this is how much it's going to cost you to do all these things. But the guy made a very good point. Subway, McDonald's, Burger King, Sonic, any of these other companies, what's the common denominator? It's not fast food, but what's the common denominator that all of them have? They're all franchises. But they're all franchises that own and distribute all their cups and burger containers and napkins. And so no matter what you do, you have to buy that stuff to function as their franchisees, right? So he said, he asked me a question, he said, "Where do you think these companies make their money?" And I said, "Well, obviously royalties, right?" He said, "No. They make it off all their distribution of their crap they sell that's non-food items."
Yeah.
Because they have to buy it. And they have these tremendous, I was in the food business, you were in the food business.
Yeah.
You know how much they charge on these cups and plates and everything else. He said that's where they make their money. Every one of them, that is their number one means of income. Sure, they enjoy that 5% they get off of that franchisee that owns
That probably runs the home office, and then they'll make the money off of it.
They make a fortune off of it. So he told us, he said, "Y'all have got to come up with a logo, business specific item that you can not marketing it to you.
Branding.
I don't care if you buy it.
Yeah.
We're not going to put it on store shelves and say, "Hey, come over and get Delta Maid's new Smell Good." But when we do start these franchisees, we're going to say, "Guess what? All of you are required to buy Delta Maid Smell Good."
Yeah.
And guess who
And
sells it?
Delta Maid, yeah.
And if you don't use it, then you're in non-compliance with your contract. It's genius.
Have you seen The Founder? You watched that movie?
Yeah, with one McDonald's.
Yeah, it's really, they did a great job because we studied that in college, and I was surprised how close that movie was to what I learned in college about the whole, Ray Kroc story and what he did and how they fell out. All that we studied all that in textbook in college, and it's a lot of that in there. He came to the realization that they didn't. The royalties wasn't what was going to make them the money. In this case, it was the land. At that time, they owned the land and they rented the land from him to put the McDonald's. That's how he made his money. And finally, the brothers just ran them out of the McDonald's. It's a real interesting movie.
Well, that's what these Dollar Generals have done.
the good people, if you want to call them good, or the most qualified, or the people you would want to be in public life, are never going to get in public life because they're getting killed on Twitter, on the news,
Oh, yeah.
or whatever, and they're not going to get into that.
I've gone high as I'm going to go in politics. There was a time when I thought I might get out of the judge's office and run for something different, but at this point I'm like, oh hell no, and I'm not editing that out. I mean, oh hell no.
You get, regardless of his politics, you get a candidate like the president, like President Trump. What could happen to him that he has not already done to himself?
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? When he's running, what are you going to say about him? He was saying it himself.
Yeah, he was.
And everyone knew who he was going in. So, that person will get in the ring.
Yeah.
What do they care?
Yeah, when that's why people like that end up being president.
Right.
Is exactly what you said. But yeah.
It's a reality show.
I would never want to be, I thought maybe one time running for Senate, state Senate or something like that, and maybe even higher than that, and I'm like, I've seen the way all this works from the other side too now, and I see the way, especially with social media, the way what happens to candidates. I won't do much politics out there.